When the email invitation from my grandson's graduation celebration appeared on my laptop screen, I clicked it open with the kind of quiet anticipation mothers learn to wear like second skin. The design was elaborate, Jennifer's signature aesthetic, all cream and gold borders with calligraphy that probably cost more than most people spend on groceries. I scrolled past the venue details, the dress code marked cocktail attire, the registry link for Nathan's future fund. Then I reached the seating chart attachment. Table 47, back corner, near kitchen entrance. I read it twice, certain I'd misunderstood. The guest list stretched across 3 pages. Jennifer's influencer friends clustered at tables 1 through 5. David's investment banking colleagues dominating 6 through 12. Extended family scattered strategically for photo opportunities. My name appeared in tiny print alongside people I'd never met. Margaret Sullivan, table 47. Not Margaret Sullivan, grandmother who changed 3,000 diapers while her son built his career. Not Margaret Sullivan, who flew cross-country every month for 3 years to rock Nathan to sleep, while Jennifer filmed Instagram stories about solo motherhood. Just Margaret Sullivan, afterthought, alphabetized among the obligation invites. The guest descriptions made it worse. David Sullivan, proud father, managing director at Thornton Investments, Harvard, MBA. Jennifer Sullivan, creative visionary, lifestyle influencer, with 480,000 followers, devoted mother. Patricia Sullivan, Nathan's brilliant aunt, MD candidate at Johns Hopkins. Margaret S. No description, no accomplishments, no role beyond existing. I closed the laptop and walked to my living room window. The Atlantic stretched out before me, afternoon sun turning the water into hammered gold. My penthouse occupies the entire 42nd floor of this building, 3,200 square feet of floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking Boca Raton's coastline. The view alone is worth the $4.2 million I paid in cash 3 years ago, back when my family still believed I rented modest efficiency somewhere near the highway. On the wall behind me hangs a collection they've never seen. 7 framed patents bearing my name. Margaret Chen Sullivan for satellite navigation systems that still orbit overhead. Between them, plaques from NASA and the Department of Defense, commendations for work I'm not technically allowed to discuss at dinner parties. Not that I'm invited to many dinner parties these days. My phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer, sent to the family group chat. Can't wait to celebrate Nathan's big day with everyone. Remember, cocktail attire, photos start at 6 sharp. Gifts can be sent via Venmo. So excited. Patricia responded first with a string of celebratory emojis. David added a thumbs up. I typed out 2 words. Looking forward. What I didn't type. I'm looking forward to the moment you realize the poor, lonely grandmother you seated in the back corner could buy this venue, and half the block it sits on. But that revelation would have to wait. I had preparations to make. The story of how I became invisible started long before Table 47. It began in 1996, when I was 28 years old and newly married to Robert Sullivan, living in a cramped Denver apartment that smelled like the Indian restaurant downstairs. I'd just been hired at Lockheed Martin as a junior aerospace engineer, the only woman in my division, the first in my family to earn any degree at all. My mother, who'd emigrated from Hong Kong at 19 and spent 30 years pressing shirts at a dry cleaner, cried when I showed her my employee badge. She held it in her weathered hands, fingers trembling slightly from years of steam and heat and repetitive motion. In Cantonese, voice-breaking, she told me I'd accomplished what she'd crossed an ocean hoping her children might achieve. Her daughter, the engineer, working on systems that would touch the sky. I promised her I'd make her proud. I didn't tell her that being the only woman in a room of 40 male engineers meant starting each day proving I belonged there. Didn't mention the colleague who called me sweetheart during presentations, or the senior engineer who asked if I was lost when I entered the classified lab for the first time. Robert worked as an accountant for a regional firm. Between our salaries, we could almost afford furniture. We ate ramen 3 nights a week and called it budgeting. We were happy in the way young people are happy when they believe hard work guarantees fairness. Then I got pregnant with David. My supervisor called me into his office 6 months along. Project lead position had opened up. Satellite navigation systems, classified work, the kind of career-making opportunity I'd spent 4 years of engineering school dreaming about. 60-hour weeks required, extensive travel, security clearances to maintain. Robert met me for lunch that day at the sandwich shop near my office. I explained the offer while picking at a turkey wrap I couldn't taste. The opportunity felt enormous, terrifying, exactly what I'd trained for. But I was 6 months pregnant, already showing, already fighting morning sickness that lasted all day. His face did something complicated. Pride and concern wrestling for dominance. Concern winning by a narrow margin. Maybe you should consider staying home with the baby, just for a few years. My salary is steady. We'll manage. I'd worked so hard for this degree. The words came out smaller than I meant them. We'll figure it out when David's older. Family comes first, Maggie. You know that. So I declined the promotion. Moved to part-time consulting when David was born, working from our apartment during nap times and late nights. Robert never asked what I was doing at the computer after midnight. I never volunteered the information. The checks went into an account he didn't know existed under my maiden name. Margaret Chen, consultant. Emergency fund, I told myself, just in case. My mother had taught me this lesson without words. She'd kept cash hidden in the hem of her winter coat, money my father never knew about. When he died suddenly of a stroke when I was 16, that hidden money paid for his funeral and kept us housed for 3 months until she found steadier work. She never said "I told you so" about the importance of secret savings. She just squeezed my hand at the funeral home and whispered in Cantonese, "Smart women always have escape money." Over 10 years, that emergency fund grew to $380,000. The consulting work came easier than I'd expected. Defense contractors needed satellite expertise but couldn't always hire full-time. I became Margaret Chen, independent consultant, available for contract work on navigation systems, positioning algorithms, trajectory calculations. I worked from home while David napped, while he watched cartoons, while he slept through the night. Robert saw me at the computer and assumed I was paying bills or browsing recipes. Never asked for details. I never offered them. The money accumulated in an account he didn't know existed, invested in tech stocks that exploded during the dot-com boom. I sold before the crash, moved everything into real estate during the recession. Bought my first rental property in 2003, a duplex in Aurora that cost $80,000. Rented both units, cleared $600 monthly profit. Reinvested, bought another, then another. By the time David turned 10, I had a portfolio worth $1.2 million. Robert thought I was a part-time consultant making maybe $20,000 a year. He managed our joint finances carefully, proud of his ability to provide. I let him have that pride. It cost me nothing to let him feel like the provider while I quietly built an empire he never suspected existed. No one knew. Not Robert, who filed our taxes and managed our joint accounts with careful precision. Not David, who grew from colicky infant to entitled preteen without understanding his mother had turned down her dreams to wipe his nose. It became a secret I carried like a second skeleton, supporting me from the inside where no one could see. The divorce happened when I was 50. Robert sat me down at our kitchen table, the house we'd finally bought after 20 years of saving, and announced he'd met someone. Younger, he said, as if I couldn't guess. A wedding planner named Caroline, 39 to my 5 decades, with the kind of effortless beauty I'd never possessed even at her age. I want a different life, Maggie. You understand? The words landed like stones. I looked at the man I'd spent 26 years married to and realized I'd been preparing for this moment without knowing it. All those years of secret savings, hidden accounts, independent consulting. My mother's voice echoed, "Smart women always have escape money." David, 26 and freshly minted from business school, took his father's side without hesitation. We met for coffee 3 days after Robert's announcement. I thought my son might offer comfort, solidarity, understanding. Instead, he launched into a prepared speech about how divorce happens, how Dad deserves happiness, how I should be mature about this. Dad deserves happiness too, Mom. Don't make this difficult. I stirred my coffee, watching cream swirl into darkness. I'm not planning to make anything difficult. Good, because he's willing to be generous with the settlement. The house is worth a lot now. Generous. The word tasted bitter. Your father is very generous. David missed the sarcasm entirely. Exactly. So just sign the papers when they come. No lawyers, no fighting. Keep it civil. I signed the papers 3 weeks later. The settlement seemed fair on paper. I got the house in Denver, worth $420,000. Robert kept his retirement accounts, $680,000 accumulated over a career of careful investing. We split the joint savings down the middle. My lawyer called it equitable. David called it generous, given that I'd only worked part-time for most of the marriage. I signed without fighting. Let them believe I was walking away with just the house and half of nothing. What they didn't know. By 2018, my consulting portfolio had ballooned to $8.7 million. Tech stocks purchased in the 90s with money no one knew I had. Real estate bought through LLCs with names that meant nothing to anyone searching public records. Dividend payments arriving quarterly to accounts Robert never knew existed. Women of my generation learned to keep escape money. My mother taught me that, pressing shirts for $8 an hour while my father drank his paycheck. She'd hidden cash in the hem of her winter coat. I'd hidden mine in plain sight, sheltered by their assumptions that a part-time working mother couldn't possibly outsmart a man with a CPA. The forced retirement came 2 years later. New management at Lockheed Martin, a 35-year-old hotshot who believed innovation belonged exclusively to people who'd grown up with smartphones. At a project meeting I'd organized, presenting navigation systems I'd designed from scratch, he interrupted with a condescending smile. Maybe let the younger engineers handle the technical presentation. You could focus on documentation. I looked at him across the conference table, 14 people watching, half my age and half my experience, putting me in what he considered my place. I designed this system. I think I'm qualified to present it. His laugh had sharp edges. Look, no offense, but technology has moved past your era. Why don't you let the digital natives take this one? My era had been 2 years ago, but I read the message underneath the words. The early retirement package arrived from HR 3 days later. Generous severance, they called it. A polite way of clearing out the old guard to make room for younger faces who'd work longer hours for less pay. David advised me to take it when I called him, voice careful, asking what he thought. Mom, maybe it's time. You've worked hard enough. Enjoy your retirement. His easy dismissal stung more than the termination. I'd spent 30 years designing systems that help satellites navigate space, and my own son thought I should peacefully retire at 52 to make room for people who thought innovation meant having the newest iPhone. Patricia, Robert's youngest sister's daughter, technically David's cousin but closer in age to being his niece, called separately. Her voice shook with anger. Aunt Maggie, fight this. It's blatant age discrimination. You could sue. But I was 52 and tired of proving myself to men who'd already decided what I was worth. I took the package, $380,000 in severance, full pension starting at 55. Everyone thought that money represented my safety net. No one asked about the $12.4 million I'd accumulated by then. The Boca Raton penthouse I'd purchased under an LLC the previous year. The commercial properties in Denver generating $18,000 in monthly passive income. The consulting work I still did under Margaret Chen, $180,000 annually for satellite systems that launched without my former employer's knowledge. I moved to Florida and told David I was renting a small condo near the beach. He never asked for the address, never suggested visiting. I drove my 2015 Honda Accord and shopped at Target and let them construct whatever story made them comfortable about my reduced circumstances. The first year after the divorce, David married Jennifer. She was 26. Luminous in that specific way of women who've never questioned their right to take up space. Her Instagram following had just crested 200,000 lifestyle content, she explained, though I never quite understood what that meant. The wedding cost $120,000. Robert contributed $40,000 without blinking. David called me 6 weeks before the ceremony. We need to finalize the budget, Mom. Dad's covering most of it, but we're hoping you can contribute something. Maybe $10,000? I could have written a check for the entire wedding and not felt the dent. Instead, I paused, letting the silence stretch. I'm on a fixed income now, sweetheart. I can manage $5,000. His disappointment carried clearly through the phone. Dad's giving so much more. Your father has different resources than I do. What I didn't say. Your father has what I left him. I have what I built without him noticing. At the wedding, they seated me at table 9, between Robert's dental hygienist and a college friend of Jennifer's I'd never met. I wore a dress from Macy's and smiled through speeches about new beginnings. No one asked me to dance. No one asked me anything. 8 months later, Nathan was born. I flew to Denver the week Jennifer came home from the hospital, expecting to stay a few days. I ended up staying 3 months. Then I started coming back monthly, 3 or 4 days each visit, holding the overnight shifts while David worked 70-hour weeks and Jennifer built her personal brand. At 2 in the morning, washing bottles in their kitchen sink while Nathan slept in the bassinet I'd bought, I could hear Jennifer live streaming from the bedroom upstairs. Her voice carried through the air vents. Motherhood is so hard, you guys. I literally do everything myself. No nanny, no help, just me grinding through it. I looked down at my 53-year-old hands, pruned from dishwater, and thought about waking her to ask if this counted as help. But women my age learn when to speak and when to simply remember. When Jennifer's followers asked who helped with the baby, she'd smile at the camera. "Oh, we have someone who comes by. Very reliable." Someone. Not Nathan's grandmother. Not the woman who'd flown across the country monthly for 3 years, sacrificing her own peace for theirs. Someone who came by. I stopped correcting her. Started counting the slights like rosary beads, each one smooth and familiar, each one proof of something I was still trying to name. When Robert died suddenly at 62, massive coronary while playing golf with his new wife's father, the family gathered for his funeral in Denver. I sat in the back row. His daughter Chloe, 22 years old, product of the marriage that had replaced ours, delivered the eulogy. She spoke about her father's brilliance, his devotion to his wife Caroline, his success in business. She mentioned his love of golf, his careful attention to finances, his generous spirit with family and friends. 26 years of marriage to me never made it into her speech. Our son David sat in the front row, listening to his half-sister erase his mother from their father's history, and said nothing. After the service, people who'd known us both approached with careful sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Maggie. You two had a good run." Had. Past tense. As if those decades had been deleted the moment he signed the divorce papers. The reception was held at Robert and Caroline's house, a sprawling ranch style in the suburbs that Robert had purchased 2 years into their marriage. I stood in the kitchen helping arrange food platters, performing the invisible labor women my age are expected to provide at family gatherings. Caroline's friends expressed gratitude for my help without ever asking who I was. David found me there, looking uncomfortable in his dark suit. "Mom, you don't have to do this. The caterers can handle it." "I know, but it helps to have something to do with my hands." He nodded, understanding without understanding. Standing in his father's new kitchen, surrounded by evidence of the life Robert had built without me, unable to acknowledge that his mother had been erased from family history in real time. Robert's will left everything to Caroline and Chloe. David received $50,000. Patricia received $50,000. I received nothing, which was expected. We'd been divorced 3 years by then, but the will included a note handwritten on his personal stationery. "To Margaret, I hope you find peace in retirement." I read those words standing in the lawyer's office, and I laughed. Actually laughed out loud while the attorney shifted uncomfortably. Robert's estate totaled $890,000. Everything he'd saved, invested, accumulated. My net worth at that moment was $13.8 million. His hope that I'd find peace in retirement was the funniest thing I'd heard in years. The distance grew after that. David's phone calls dwindled from weekly to monthly to whenever he remembered. My visits to see Nathan decreased from monthly to quarterly, not because I wanted to see him less, but because the invitations dried up. "We're just so busy, Mom. Jennifer's brand is really taking off." Her following had grown to 350,000. She posted about work-life balance and authentic motherhood and the importance of doing it all yourself. I watched her feed sometimes, seeing Nathan in the background of carefully staged photos, and wondered if she'd forgotten who'd been there for the unglamorous parts. The explosive diarrhea at 3 a.m., the teething screams, the desperate nights when new parents break down because a tiny human won't stop crying, and you haven't slept in 70 hours. I'd been there. But in Jennifer's narrative, she'd survived it all alone. Nathan turned 5. They threw an elaborate party, rented venue, pony rides, magician, the works. I offered to help with setup. "That's okay, Maggie. We hired event planners. Just come enjoy the party." So I arrived at the designated time and found myself seated with the elderly relatives section, other grandparents, Robert's remaining aunts, people who existed on the periphery of David's new life. Jennifer's Instagram showed 43 photos from the event. Event planners got tagged. The caterer got tagged. The photographer got a dedicated story highlight. I appeared in 0 photos, despite spending 3 hours at the party. despite being the woman who taught Nathan his colors and numbers during those long months when his parents were too busy building their futures to build his foundation. When the pension kicked in at 55, $4,200 depositing monthly into my checking account, David called to ask if I was managing financially. "I'm fine, sweetheart. The pension helps." "Good, good. Let me know if you ever need anything." He never offered anything, never asked what anything might look like. The call lasted 6 minutes. My actual monthly passive income at that point was $18,500. Investment dividends, commercial real estate rent, consulting fees. I could have bought David's house in cash and not noticed the expense, but I kept driving my aging Honda and shopping sales at Target and letting them believe whatever story comforted them about my circumstances. Patricia was different. She called regularly, actually asked questions, remembered details from previous conversations. When medical school debt threatened to drown her, $180,000 accumulated across 4 years. She called me crying. "Grandpa Robert left me $50,000, but it's not enough, Aunt Maggie. I don't know how I'm going to manage." I sent her $500 a month for groceries, told her it was all I could spare from my fixed income. She never asked for more, never expected me to solve her problems, just appreciated the help. David, her brother, offered her nothing. Medical school was her choice, he said. She needs to figure it out. I could have paid her entire debt with a single wire transfer and never felt it. Instead, I watched, taking notes on which of my family members knew how to value help and which only knew how to demand it. One of my Denver properties sits 4 blocks from David's house, a 6-unit apartment building I'd purchased through an LLC in 2003, now worth $1.1 million. I keep the rent 15% below market rate, flexible with single mothers, quick to fix problems. My building manager handles everything. David walks past it twice a day on his way to the coffee shop he favors. He's never once wondered who owns it. Once he complained to me during a phone call about Denver's insane rental market. "It's brutal, Mom. Good thing Jen and I bought when we did." I made agreeable sounds and didn't mention that his daily coffee shop sits in a building owned by his supposedly impoverished mother. The real breaking point came 3 months before the graduation party, Nathan's 8th birthday. The invitation arrived by email, addressed to family members for an intimate celebration at David and Jennifer's home. I booked my flight from Florida to Denver immediately, excitement building at the thought of seeing my grandson. 1 week before the party, Jennifer texted, "Hi Maggie, so sorry, but we had to keep the number small for Nathan's party. Hope you understand." I stared at my phone screen, reading the message 3 times. "I'm his grandmother. I've already booked my flight." "I know, and we love that you wanted to come. But David's work colleagues are attending and we're at capacity. Maybe you could FaceTime during cake cutting?" David backed her up when I called him directly. "Mom, don't make this difficult. There'll be other birthdays." I canceled my flight, sat in my penthouse overlooking the Atlantic, and looked at 3 years' worth of photos on my phone. Me holding newborn Nathan in the hospital, teaching him to stack blocks at 6 months, reading him stories at bedtime while his parents worked late. Every monthly visit, every bottle, every diaper, every midnight rocking session when he wouldn't sleep. They'd found room for 40 people at that party, just not room for me. I FaceTimed during the cake cutting as Jennifer had suggested. Nathan waved at the screen, distracted by presents and sugar. David held the phone awkwardly, clearly eager to return to his guests. In the background, I counted heads, work colleagues, Jennifer's influencer friends, neighbors I'd never met. The house looked packed, room for everyone except the woman who'd sacrificed countless hours to help raise that child. I smiled, sang happy birthday, hung up before my voice could crack. That night, I made a decision. No more making myself small to fit into their narrative. No more pretending my worth could be measured by where they chose to seat me or whether they remembered to include me. The graduation party invitation arrived 6 weeks later, table 47. The final insult delivered with calligraphy and cream-colored borders. I downloaded the attached PDF seating chart and studied it like a battle plan. Tables 1 through 5. Jennifer's inner circle, the influencers and content creators who existed in her carefully curated world. Tables 6 through 12, David's colleagues from Thornton Investments, the Harvard MBA crowd who talked about market disruptions and portfolio optimization. Tables 13 through 30, extended family, carefully positioned for optimal photo backgrounds. Table 47 sat in the back corner, near the kitchen entrance where servers would jostle past with dirty dishes, between strangers and obligation invites. A statement rendered in floor plan form. You don't matter enough to matter. The guest list descriptions made it worse. David got his fancy title and degree, Jennifer got her follower count and creative vision. Patricia got acknowledged as brilliant. I got listed alphabetically as Margaret S. No description, no accomplishments, no identity beyond existing at the bottom of their priority list. I opened my laptop and composed a careful reply to the RSVP form. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to celebrating Nathan. By the way, I'd love to contribute to his future fund. What amount were you thinking? Jennifer's response came back within an hour, enthusiasm practically vibrating through the screen. Oh, Maggie, that's so sweet of you. Most people are giving between $200 and $500. I read that number and felt something cold settle in my chest. $200 to $500. For the child I'd raised while they built their brands and careers. For the grandson they'd uninvited from his own birthday party because I wasn't important enough. I'll plan accordingly, I typed back. What I didn't type: that watch you're wearing in your latest Instagram post costs more than my suggested contribution to my own grandson's future. I booked my flight to Denver, reserved a room at the Four Seasons, $850 a night, the kind of excess they'd assume I couldn't afford. Then I RSVP'd with 2 words that would change everything. Margaret Sullivan +1. Jennifer's confused response arrived within minutes. Didn't know you were bringing someone? Who's your +1? A friend. You'll meet her at the event. I could practically hear her internal scrambling through the text. Social media had taught her to say yes to everything, to never admit when something inconvenienced her carefully constructed vision. No problem, looking forward to meeting her. 2 weeks before the event, I called Patricia. Her voice brightened when she saw my name on caller ID. Grandma, I'm so glad you called. I saw the seating chart. I'm sorry about table 47. It's fine, honey. They have limited space. It's not fine. You practically raised Nathan. People forget. It happens. Her frustration carried clearly. Are you really bringing someone? Yes, someone I want David and Jennifer to meet. Who? It's a surprise. What I didn't tell her. I'd already called Eleanor Whitmore, my estate attorney and former Lockheed Martin colleague. Eleanor had spent 30 years fighting her way through aerospace engineering before pivoting to law. She understood the particular invisibility that comes with being a competent woman of a certain age. I need you to attend an event with me and bring documentation. Eleanor's voice sharpened with interest. What kind of documentation? The kind that makes people very uncomfortable when they realize what they've overlooked. 3 days before the event, I flew to Denver early and went shopping. Not Target this time. A designer boutique in Cherry Creek, where the saleswoman's eyes widened when I pointed at the Carolina Herrera suit in the window. That's $3,200. I know, I'll take it, and I need accessories. The Cartier watch cost $8,500. The diamond studs were $4,200. My hair appointment ran another $300. Total spent $16,400. 4 months of pension income, according to the story my family believed about my finances. The stylist finished, stepping back to let me see myself in the full-length mirror. I looked at the woman reflected back. Elegant, expensive, powerful. Not the impoverished retiree David pitied. Not the lonely widow Jennifer dismissed. Margaret Chen Sullivan, aerospace engineer, investor, property owner. The woman I'd been hiding for 6 years while they decided I wasn't worth knowing. I smiled at my reflection and whispered the words no one else could hear. Let's show them what they dismissed. Eleanor met me at the Four Seasons lobby the morning of the event. She carried a leather portfolio that I knew contained every document capable of unraveling the story my family had constructed about my circumstances. Property deeds for 3 Denver buildings, including the one David walked past daily. Stock portfolio statements showing $2.8 million in current holdings. The Boca Raton penthouse deed, $4.2 million paid in cash. Consulting income records for Margaret Chen LLC, $180,000 annually. Patent certificates with royalty payments of $40,000 per year. And the summary document that made everything clear. Net worth statement totaling $14.1 million. I didn't plan to use all of them, but I wanted them ready, just in case someone asked the right questions. Are you sure about this? Eleanor studied my face across the hotel restaurant table. This will change everything. Everything has already changed. They changed it when they put me at table 47. What's the plan? I'm going to sit quietly at my assigned table, smile, be gracious. And if anyone asks the right questions, I'll answer honestly. And if they don't ask, then they'll keep assuming. And that will tell me everything I need to know about whether this relationship is worth rebuilding. We went upstairs to prepare. The Carolina Herrera suit fit perfectly, dark navy that read expensive without screaming. The Cartier watch caught light with every movement. Diamond studs subtle enough to be tasteful, obvious enough to signal money. I'd learned over decades that the truly wealthy don't need to announce themselves. They simply exist in spaces that cost more than most people earn. Eleanor wore a sharp Armani suit, her legal briefcase suggesting business rather than pleasure. Together, we looked like what we were. Two successful professional women who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. Ready? Eleanor asked as we stood before the mirror. To watch entitled people learn lessons? Always. Remember, we're not here for confrontation. Just truth. Just truth. My phone buzzed. Text from Jennifer in the family group chat. Can't wait to see everyone tonight. Event starts at 6 p.m. sharp. Dress nicely. Lots of photo opportunities. I looked down at my $3,200 suit, my $8,500 watch, and smiled. Eleanor caught my expression. What's funny? She said dress nicely. She has no idea I'm about to be the best dressed person in that room. And the richest? By approximately $13.6 million. But she doesn't know that yet. The elevator descended toward the lobby. My reflection in the polished doors showed a woman who'd stopped pretending to be poor to make other people comfortable. Whatever happened next, I'd done the math, calculated the costs and benefits of visibility, decided that being seen, truly seen, was worth whatever consequences followed. The elevator doors opened. Evening light slanted through the hotel's glass facade, turning everything gold. Eleanor adjusted her briefcase. Time to show them what they've been missing. I stepped into the lobby, heels clicking on marble, and thought about table 47 waiting for me across town. The dismissal rendered in seating charts and guest list descriptions. The message delivered in cream and gold calligraphy. You don't matter enough to matter. They were right about one thing. After tonight, nothing would be the same. They just had no idea how much. The valet took my rental car keys with the kind of practiced deference reserved for vehicles that cost more per day than he probably earned per week. Eleanor stepped out from the passenger side, her briefcase catching the early evening light. The venue rose before us, all glass and steel, and Denver's particular brand of mountain modern architecture. Jennifer had rented the entire second floor of the Pinnacle Event Center, a space that hosted corporate galas and political fundraisers. Through the windows, I could see string lights already glowing, hear the murmur of early arrivals. A young woman with a clipboard stationed at the entrance smiled as we approached. Name, please? Margaret Sullivan and guest. She scanned her list, finger trailing down to the S section. Her smile brightened with the artificial enthusiasm of someone paid to be welcoming. Table 47. Welcome, Ms. Sullivan. The coat check is to your right. Bar service begins at 6:30. We walked through double doors into a space Jennifer had transformed into her Instagram dream. White flowers everywhere, roses and hydrangeas spilling from centerpieces, climbing trellises positioned for photo backdrops. Edison bulbs strung overhead created the illusion of casual elegance, while probably costing more than casual anything. Tables draped in champagne-colored linens radiated outward from a central stage, where Nathan would presumably accept his elementary school graduation certificate, like it was a Nobel Prize. Patricia spotted us first. She'd been standing near the bar, nursing what looked like sparkling water, wearing a simple black dress that probably represented her entire clothing budget for the month. Her eyes widened as she took in my suit, Eleanor's presence, the whole expensive picture we presented. She crossed the room quickly, heels clicking on hardwood. "Grandma!" Her voice pitched higher than normal, surprised delight mixed with something like shock. "You look amazing," Eleanor supplied the word with a slight smile. Patricia laughed, pulling me into a hug that smelled like the jasmine perfume I'd given her last Christmas. When she stepped back, her gaze traveled from my shoes to my earrings, cataloging details. "Is that Cartier?" I touched the watch face briefly. "You've always been observant, sweetheart. How's residency treating you?" "Forget residency." She lowered her voice, glancing around to see who might be listening. "Grandma, where did you get that suit?" Eleanor extended her hand before I could answer. "Eleanor Whitmore, estate attorney, an old friend." Patricia shook her hand. intelligence sparking in her expression as she connected dots. Attorney? As in I handle Maggie's legal affairs. Portfolio management, property transactions, the usual. Portfolio. Patricia repeated the word like she was testing its weight. Grandma, what portfolio? Across the room, David detached himself from a cluster of men in expensive suits, his colleagues from Thornton Investments, judging by their identical postures of aggressive confidence. He moved toward us with the careful gait of someone trying to appear casual while actually investigating. I watched him approach, watched the moment he actually looked at me rather than through me. His steps faltered, recovered. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, deeper confusion, something that might have been concern. Mom? The word came out like a question. Is that you? Hello, David, you look well. But he wasn't looking at himself. He was staring at me, at the suit that cost more than his monthly mortgage payment, at the watch that could fund a decent used car. His gaze flicked to Eleanor, to Patricia, back to me. You look. His voice trailed into uncertainty. Really different. Thank you, this is my friend Eleanor Whitmore. Eleanor offered her hand with the same professional warmth she'd given Patricia. Your mother speaks highly of you, David. Pleasure to meet you. He shook her hand automatically, brain clearly working to process what he was seeing. Hi. Mom, are you okay? I mean, financially? The question hung between us, awkward and telling. Why do you ask? That outfit looks expensive. Very expensive. Is it inappropriate? Jennifer did specify cocktail attire. No, it's just, I thought you were living on your pension. I am. The pension deposits every month like clockwork. So how did you afford? He caught himself, realizing the rudeness of the question a second too late. Never mind. It's none of my business. Eleanor's voice carried precisely calibrated amusement. Actually, as her estate attorney, I can confirm Maggie's financial decisions are quite sound. Estate attorney? David's forehead creased. Mom, why do you need an estate attorney? Jennifer appeared before I could answer, materialized like a conjurer's trick with a photographer in tow. She wore pale pink, her signature color, carefully chosen to complement her blonde hair and the aesthetic she'd built across 500,000 followers. Her smile was camera-ready, professionally warm. Maggie, you came, and you look— She paused, as the full picture registered. Her eyes did the same inventory David's had done, but faster, more calculating. I watched her mentally price every piece, watched her realize this outfit cost more than she'd probably ever spent on clothing in a single shopping trip. Wow. Her recovery was smooth, voice pitched for the photographer's benefit. You look absolutely stunning. She air-kissed near my cheeks, performing affection for an audience I couldn't see, but knew was watching through her phone camera. Thank you, Jennifer. Congratulations on this beautiful event. To the photographer, get this, family photo. The camera flashed. Eleanor stepped slightly aside, giving them the frame they wanted. Jennifer's arm around my shoulders felt like performance art. The devoted daughter-in-law, grateful for family, #blessed. Thank you so much for coming. Her voice carried that specific influencer brightness, projecting warmth to the room at large. We're so grateful to have family here supporting Nathan. The photographer moved on to capture other arrivals. Jennifer's smile stayed fixed, but her voice dropped to something more private. So, Maggie, where are you seated? I'll make sure you know where to go. Eleanor spoke before I could. Table 47. We found it on the seating chart. Jennifer's expression flickered. Right, yes, the garden view table. Eleanor's tone remained pleasant, conversational. How many tables total are there? The question landed like a stone in still water. Jennifer's brain worked visibly. 50, I think? So, second to last table? Eleanor pulled out her phone, appearing to make a note. Interesting placement for immediate family. We had limited VIP space. Jennifer's defensiveness sharpened her words. Those tables filled up quickly with David's colleagues and my content partners. Content partners. Eleanor repeated it with the faint curiosity of someone encountering a foreign phrase. And those individuals take priority over Nathan's grandmother? David stepped in, sensing conflict. Eleanor, was it? I'm sure you understand event planning involves complicated logistics. I understand perfectly. Eleanor's voice remained pleasant as cut glass. I handle estate planning. Seating hierarchies are quite clear when you know how to read them. The temperature dropped 5 degrees. Jennifer's smile locked into place like a mannequin's, frozen and artificial. Well, she pivoted with the practiced ease of someone who'd built a career on avoiding uncomfortable moments. I should check on other guests. Maggie, Eleanor, please enjoy the event. She retreated toward a group of women I didn't recognize, all holding phones at identical angles, all wearing variations of her aesthetic, her content partners presumably. David lingered, clearly torn between following his wife and confronting whatever his mother had become. Mom, can we talk later after the ceremony? Of course. That attorney. He lowered his voice further. Why did you bring your attorney to Nathan's graduation party? Eleanor answered for me. Maggie invited me as a friend. The fact that I'm also her legal counsel is incidental. But why do you need legal counsel at a family event? Why wouldn't I? Eleanor's eyebrow lifted fractionally. Maggie has significant assets to manage. I advise her on all major decisions. Significant assets. David repeated the phrase like he was translating from another language. What assets? A colleague called his name from across the room. David glanced back, caught between conversations, between worlds. He looked at me one more time, questions piling up behind his eyes. We'll talk later, Mom. He walked away. Eleanor watched him go, then turned to me with something like sympathy. He really doesn't know anything, does he? Not a thing. Patricia had been observing the exchange with growing understanding. Her voice came out quiet, meant only for us. Grandma, exactly how much money do you have? Enough, sweetheart. More than enough. The ceremony began at 6:30 sharp. Guests found their assigned tables, while Jennifer's hired MC took the stage, microphone feedback squealing briefly before settling into professional projection. I made my way to table 47 with Eleanor, past the VIP tables where David sat with Jennifer and Nathan, past the influencer section where phones were already raised to document every moment, past family members I recognized and colleagues I'd never met. Table 47 occupied a corner near the kitchen service entrance, exactly as advertised. The garden view consisted of a narrow window overlooking a dumpster enclosure. My table mates were already seated. An older couple I didn't know, a middle-aged man scrolling his phone, a woman in her late 40s who looked vaguely uncomfortable. The older man stood when we approached, old-fashioned manners asserting themselves. Tom Harris. This is my wife, Linda. We're friends of David's from his college days. Our son was his roommate. Margaret Sullivan. This is my friend Eleanor Whitmore. Linda Harris's face brightened with recognition that faded almost immediately into confusion. Margaret Sullivan, you're David's mother? I am. I didn't realize. She glanced at her husband, then back to me. David never mentioned you'd be here. The words landed exactly as she'd meant them, an observation with implications. I smiled, gracious. I live in Florida now. We don't see each other as often as we'd like. The middle-aged man introduced himself as Marcus Webb, former colleague of Jennifer's from some marketing firm. The uncomfortable woman was Diane Porter, connected to Jennifer's family in some way she explained, but I immediately forgot. We settled into our seats as the MC began his welcome speech. Nathan appeared on stage in a miniature tuxedo that made my chest ache with affection. 8 years old and already performing confidence like his parents had taught him, smiling at the crowd with Jennifer's practiced charm and David's careful control. The ceremony consisted of standard elementary graduation fare, certificates awarded, a slideshow of childhood photos, speeches from teachers praising Nathan's brightness and potential. The MC called for family recognition midway through. Let's give a round of applause to Nathan's amazing parents, David and Jennifer Sullivan. Spotlight swung to table 1. David and Jennifer stood, waving, accepting applause like Academy Award winners. Jennifer held her phone up, capturing the moment for her Instagram story. The applause lasted 15 seconds, maybe 20. I watched from my corner table and felt Patricia's eyes on me from across the room, where she'd been seated at table 6, the family but not VIP section. Any grandparents here tonight? The MC's voice carried cheerful inclusivity. I stood in my corner, along with several other older guests scattered throughout the room. Nathan saw me, his face lighting up with genuine delight. He waved enthusiastically. I waved back, smile real for the first time since arriving. Wonderful family support is everything. The MC moved on. No special mention, no spotlight, just a general acknowledgement that grandparents existed in the abstract. I sat back down as dinner service began. Linda Harris leaned toward me, voice pitched low. You practically raised him, didn't you? Nathan? I helped when I could, while David and Jennifer built their careers. She nodded, something like sympathy crossing her features. Tom mentioned David talking about how much you'd sacrificed. Moving out here monthly, taking care of the baby. Did he? I kept my voice neutral. That's kind of him to remember. Dinner arrived at the VIP tables first, carried by servers in black vests. Tables 1 through 10 received their plated salmon or chicken within 15 minutes. Tables 11 through 30 followed over the next half hour. Table 47 received our meals at 7:45, nearly an hour after service began. My salmon had gone cold. The vegetables sat in congealed butter. Eleanor poked at her chicken with clinical interest. Marcus Webb spoke around a mouthful of overcooked meat. Always the way at these things. Back tables get everything last and cold. Linda Harris looked at me with something approaching outrage. You're his grandmother and they're serving you last? It's fine. I cut into my salmon, which had the texture of cardboard. I didn't come for the food. Eleanor made a note on her phone. I recognized the gesture. She was documenting, building a record. For what purpose? I wasn't certain. But Eleanor never did anything without strategic intent. David stood at 7:50 to deliver his toast. The room quieted, phones raised to capture the moment. His voice carried false heartiness, the practiced cheerfulness of someone delivering prepared remarks. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate Nathan. Jennifer and I have worked incredibly hard to give him every opportunity. We've sacrificed, saved, built successful careers, also our son can have the best possible foundation. Looking around this room, I see our community, the people who've supported us, believed in us, helped us reach this point. His gesture encompassed the VIP tables, the colleagues and influencer friends, the carefully curated network that defined his world. He didn't look toward table 47, didn't acknowledge the woman who'd held his son through night terrors while he closed business deals in Tokyo. To Nathan and to the family and friends who made this possible. Glasses lifted. Applause rippled through the room. I raised my champagne, Veuve Clicquot, I noted, probably $65 a bottle, and sipped while watching my son accept congratulations from people who'd been in his life for years or weeks, all equally valued, all more visible than his mother. Eleanor's whisper barely reached me. That was pointed. Was it? I didn't notice. Jennifer stood next, phone already positioned for her Instagram live broadcast. 12,000 viewers, according to the number visible on her screen. Hi everyone, both here and watching at home. Her voice achieved that specific pitch of authentic enthusiasm that influencers perfect. I just want to say, motherhood is literally the hardest job in the world. I do everything for this child. Every single day, every single night. The cooking, the cleaning, the homework help, the activity shuttles. It's absolutely exhausting, but so rewarding. So, she paused for effect, looking directly into her phone camera. To all the moms out there doing it alone, I see you, I celebrate you, we're warriors. Her followers sent heart emojis flooding across the screen. Comments praised her dedication, her authenticity, her strength. Patricia caught my eye from table 6, her expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. I shook my head slightly. Not yet. Jennifer continued for another minute, thanking her brand partners and tagging her content collaborators, before finally sitting down to thunderous applause from her section of the room. Eleanor set down her champagne glass with careful precision. She really believes that, doesn't she? That she did it all alone? Belief is easier than memory. Nathan escaped Jennifer's photo session during the cocktail hour that followed dinner. He navigated through clusters of adults with the single-minded focus of a child seeking someone specific. When he spotted me at table 47, his face transformed with uncomplicated joy. "Grandma Maggie!" He launched himself at me without regard for my expensive suit. I caught him, lifted him onto my lap, felt his small arms circle my neck with the fierce affection children give before they learn to ration it. "I missed you. Why don't you visit anymore?" His question pierced with innocent precision. "You're very busy with school, sweetheart." I didn't want to interfere. "Mommy said you live far away in a small apartment because you don't have money." The table went silent. 6 pairs of adult eyes fixed on Nathan, on me, on the bomb he'd just detonated with 8-year-old honesty. I kept my voice gentle. "Did she?" "Yeah. She said we can't visit you because you can't afford a big place for us to stay." Eleanor's pen stopped mid-note. Tom Harris cleared his throat uncomfortably. Linda's hand covered her mouth. Marcus Webb suddenly found his phone fascinating. Nathan continued, oblivious to the reaction he'd provoked. "She said you're lonely and sad because Grandpa died and you have no friends." I stroked his hair, soft and fine under my fingers. "Well, this is my friend Eleanor." "Hi!" Nathan brightened, turning to Eleanor with the resilient cheer of children. "Are you rich?" You look rich. Eleanor's laugh carried genuine amusement. I do all right. But your grandmother is far more successful than I am. Really? Nathan looked at me with new curiosity. How come Mommy said you're poor? Before I could answer, David appeared, tension written across his shoulders. Nathan, come on, don't bother Grandma. I'm not bothering. I love Grandma. I know, buddy, but she's tired. Long flight from Florida. I'm not tired, David. His jaw tightened, muscle jumping beneath skin. Mom, can we talk? Privately? Of course. He waited while I set Nathan down, while I stood and smoothed my suit. Eleanor remained seated, but her attention tracked us like radar. The terrace outside the main event space offered relative privacy, glass doors muffling the party noise to a distant hum. Denver spread below us, city lights competing with the last purple remnants of sunset. David paced to the railing, gripped it, turned back to face me. Mom, I'm sorry about the seating arrangement. Jennifer handled the planning. I didn't realize. It's fine. It's not fine. His frustration bubbled up, surprising us both. And I'm sorry we haven't visited Florida. Work has been insane. I understand. Do you? He studied my face like he was searching for something he'd lost. Because I feel like you're angry, and I don't completely understand why. I'm not angry, David. Then what was that outfit about? The lawyer? Bringing someone to make a point? I brought a friend. I dressed appropriately for cocktail attire. That suit costs more than... He stopped himself. How did you afford it? I bought it. On your pension? Among other income sources. What other income sources? His voice rose slightly. Mom, you told me you were living on a fixed income. You said you couldn't afford to help with Nathan's expenses. You said you were managing, but it was tight. I said I manage, which I do. I never said it was tight. The distinction landed between us like a third presence. You're being cryptic and it's frustrating. He pushed off from the railing, closed the distance between us. That woman, Eleanor, she said she handles your portfolio. What portfolio? Investment portfolio, property holdings, the usual. The usual? Mom, you drive a 15-year-old Honda. You shop at Target. You live in... Where do I live, David? The question stopped him. Some condo in Boca Raton. You sent the address when you moved. Did I? I can't recall sending an address, just the city. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through old messages, proved himself wrong in real time. His face changed as the implication settled. I don't have your address. No. Why not? You never asked. Silence stretched, filled by city traffic and distant music. Where do you actually live? 2500 South Ocean Boulevard. Penthouse unit. 3,200 square feet with Atlantic views. Currently valued at $4.2 million. His laugh came out wrong, more shock than humor. That's not funny. I pulled out my phone, opened the real estate app, showed him the listing. His face went through several colors. This is real? Very real. How could you possibly? His brain worked visibly, trying to reconcile the information. There's no way you could afford this on pension. On pension alone, I couldn't. So how? Commercial real estate in Denver. 3 properties generating substantial monthly income. Stock portfolio accumulated over 30 years. Consulting work I never stopped doing under my maiden name. Patent royalties from aerospace systems I designed. Each revelation hit like a physical blow. He actually stepped backward. Patent royalties? You have patents? 7. Navigation system still in use on weather satellites. I don't understand. You said you worked part-time. You said, I worked part-time at Lockheed, full-time as an independent consultant. Your father never asked what I did on the computer after midnight. I never volunteered the information. For how long? 30 years, since before you were born. He sat down on the terrace bench, legs apparently unable to support him. How much money do we talking about? Current net worth is $14.1 million. The number hung in the air between us. 14 million. I watched him try to process it, watched every assumption he'd built about my life crack and crumble. And you let us think you were broke? I never said I was broke. You assumed. We felt sorry for you. Did you? His anger sparked something in me, something I'd kept carefully controlled. Or did you pity me because it was easier than actually caring? That's not fair. What's not fair, David? The fact that I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college while pregnant with you, that I turned down the promotion that would have made me project lead so I could stay home with a colicky infant, that I flew across the country monthly for 3 years to raise your son while you built your career. Mom. Or maybe what's not fair is that tonight, Jennifer stood in front of 150 people and claimed she does everything alone while I sat at table 47, the afterthought table, listening to my grandson tell me his mother says I'm poor and lonely. David's face had gone pale. I didn't know she said that to Nathan. But you knew she said it to her followers. I've seen her Instagram. No help, no nanny, just me. While I was there washing bottles at 2 a.m. He had no defense. We both knew it. Why didn't you tell us? About the money, the properties, any of it? Because I wanted to see who cared about me versus who cared about what I could give them. And I have my answer. We stood in the near dark, the weight of revelation settling like dust after demolition. David's voice came out smaller than before. $14 million. Approximately. And you were going to let us keep thinking? I was going to let you keep assuming. There's a difference. The terrace door opened. Eleanor appeared, backlit by the party. Maggie, Jennifer is looking for David. Something about photographs. David stood mechanically. We're not done talking about this. No, we're not. He walked past Eleanor back into the light and noise. Eleanor joined me at the railing. How'd he take it? Like I'd announced I was secretly an astronaut. Close enough. She handed me a glass of champagne I didn't remember her carrying. They're starting the cake ceremony. You might want to be present for what comes next. What comes next? Patricia asked permission to post a comment on Jennifer's Instagram Live. About your involvement in Nathan's early years. I approved it? You did. 20 minutes ago. You just forgot because you were busy destroying your son's worldview. What did Patricia say? That you raised Nathan while Jennifer built her brand. With receipts. Eleanor's smile had edges. This should be interesting. The cake ceremony began with the practiced choreography of events designed for social media. 3-tiered creation wheeled out, candles lit, phones raised. Jennifer positioned Nathan for optimal angles while David stood awkwardly to the side, still processing our conversation. Jennifer's Instagram Live had ballooned to 18,000 viewers. Comments scrolled past in real time, and I watched Patricia's appear like a depth charge. Question. Didn't David's mother live with you for months at a time when Nathan was a baby? I remember her being there constantly during those first years. Other comments picked it up immediately. Wait, who's Nathan's grandma? Is she there tonight? Jennifer never mentioned family help. Jennifer's smile tightened fractionally as she read the flood of questions. Her recovery was smooth, but not quite smooth enough. Oh yes, David's mom helped sometimes when she visited. But that was just grandmother stuff, not real parenting, you know? The comments turned skeptical. Grandmother stuff is real parenting. Sounds like she helped a lot and you're minimizing it. Why isn't she in any of your family content? Jennifer pivoted quickly, moving to a different topic, but the damage had been done. Her authentic motherhood narrative had sprung a leak, and her followers smelled blood. The cake cutting proceeded, photographs captured. Nathan fed bites to his parents for the camera. Through it all, Jennifer's phone kept buzzing with comments she couldn't acknowledge without admitting the contradiction. Tom Harris leaned toward me at table 47. I've been watching her feed. People are asking about you now. Let them ask. Linda added her observation. Someone just posted a link to Margaret Chen's NASA citations. Is that you? It is. Marcus Webb, who'd been silently scrolling his own phone, looked up with new interest. You designed satellite navigation systems? I was part of several teams, yes. Part of? Eleanor's voice carried dry amusement. Maggie revolutionized autonomous positioning in the 90s. Her patents are still in use. The attention at our table had shifted entirely. No longer the forgotten corner where obligation invites got shuffled. Now the most interesting conversation in the room. Diane Porter spoke for the first time in an hour. Jennifer told me you were retired and struggling financially. I am retired, I'm not struggling. The cake ceremony ended. Guests returned to mingling, to refilling drinks, to the endless social performance that events like this demanded. I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment away from the gathering storm I could feel building. Jennifer intercepted me in the hallway, smile firmly in place, but voice dropping to something more private the moment we were alone. Maggie, can we talk? Woman to woman? Of course! She glanced back toward the main room, ensuring privacy. I owe you an apology. I didn't realize you were so accomplished. David never really talked about your career. That's because he never asked about it. Right, well, her laugh sounded forced. Families, we make assumptions. We do. So about my Instagram. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable despite her practiced poise. Some comments are asking about you, about your role in Nathan's early years. What would you like me to say? I was thinking maybe we could coordinate our messaging. Like I could acknowledge your help more publicly. Maybe feature you in some content. My followers would love Grandma the Engineer stories. Her enthusiasm rang hollow, desperate. Why didn't you seat me at the family table, Jennifer? The question landed like I'd slapped her. We were limited on space. You had 50 tables. That's space for 500 people. You found room for content partners and David's colleagues. You didn't find room for Nathan's grandmother at the family table. The VIP tables were for photos, for the aesthetic. The aesthetic of your grandson's graduation didn't include the woman who raised him while you built your following? Jennifer's mask cracked slightly, frustration bleeding through. Maggie, please, can we just move forward? I'm trying to apologize here. You're trying to manage a PR crisis. There's a difference. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that I am not your content. I am not Grandma the engineer for your Wisdom Wednesdays. I am not a redemption arc for your authenticity problem. I wasn't, you were, you are, and I decline. Her expression hardened, the influencer sweetness evaporating. You know what? David was right about you. Right about what? You're bitter. About the divorce, about us being successful. You've been hiding money to make us look bad. I laughed, genuine and surprised. Jennifer, I haven't been hiding money. I've been living my life. The fact that you never noticed says everything about you and nothing about me. What do you want from us? Nothing. Not a single thing. I came to see Nathan. I saw him. I'm content. Then why bring the lawyer? Why dress like that? Why make everything awkward? I dressed appropriately. Eleanor is my friend. If you're feeling awkward, perhaps examine why. She opened her mouth to respond, but David appeared at the end of the hallway. Jen, they're starting the gift opening. We need you for photos. Jennifer's smile snapped back into place like a mask. Coming. She looked at me one final time. We're not done with this conversation. Yes, we are. She swept past me toward the main room. David lingered, caught between his wife and his mother, loyalty divided in ways he'd never had to consider before. Mom, can you just try to understand Jennifer's position? This is hard for her. Is it? I kept my voice level. Harder than spending 3 years flying across the country monthly to raise your child? Harder than sitting at table 47 while strangers got better placement? He had no answer. The gift opening was calling. He followed his wife back into the light. I returned to find table 47 engaged in animated conversation. Tom Harris stood when I approached. Margaret, I just want to say, I looked up your patents. What you accomplished is extraordinary. Thank you. Linda added her piece, voice carrying genuine anger on my behalf. You should be sitting up front with family. This seating arrangement is disgraceful. It's revealing. I settled back into my chair, which serves its own purpose. Eleanor handed me a fresh champagne glass. Gift opening is about to begin. You ready? For what? To watch entitled people learn what they overlooked. Nathan sat cross-legged on the stage, surrounded by wrapped boxes and gift bags. The opening proceeded with standard 8-year-old enthusiasm. Toys unwrapped, thank yous delivered with coached politeness. David and Jennifer hovering for photo opportunities. My envelope came near the end of the pile. Nathan opened it, found the $500 Visa gift card inside. Wow, thank you, Grandma Maggie. Jennifer's relief was visible from across the room. A reasonable gift, nothing to complicate her narrative. I stood, drawing attention as I crossed to the stage. Conversations quieted. Eleanor followed at a discreet distance, briefcase in hand. That's just the first part, Nathan. I have something else for you, but your parents should open this one. I handed David a larger envelope, cream-colored, expensive paper, sealed with my attorney's firm stamp. He took it with visible reluctance, opened it while Jennifer peered over his shoulder. Inside, legal documents professionally bound. I watched their faces change as they read. Watched confusion become comprehension, become shock. David's voice came out strangled. Is this real? Very real. Eleanor had joined us now, standing close enough to verify. Irrevocable trust, properly filed and notarized. $250,000 for Nathan's education. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. David stared at the papers like they might vanish if he looked away. The room had gone silent. 150 guests watching family drama unfold in real time. I knelt beside Nathan, ignoring the expensive suit, focusing only on my grandson. This is for your education, sweetheart. When you turn 18, you can use it for any accredited university you choose. No one can take it from you or tell you what to do with it. It's yours because you're brilliant and kind and worthy. Nathan's 8-year-old brain couldn't quite process the numbers, but he understood the sentiment. Thank you, Grandma. His hug was fierce and uncomplicated. I stood, addressing David and Jennifer directly. The trust is managed by a third-party trustee. Eleanor's firm handles administration. You'll receive annual reports, but have no access to the principal. The money is Nathan's alone. David found his voice. We can't touch it? No, that's the point of a trust. Jennifer's face had gone pale. But we're his parents, which is why you'll want him to have the best education possible. This ensures he gets it, regardless of circumstances. The documents made it clear. Ironclad legal language preventing parental access, ensuring Nathan's future couldn't be mortgaged for anyone else's present. Eleanor handed David her business card. Any questions about the trust can be directed to my office. The structure is standard, but the funding is quite generous. Nathan is very fortunate. Patricia watched from her table with tears streaming down her face. Tom and Linda Harris looked at me with something approaching awe. Marcus Webb had his phone out, probably Googling whether $250,000 trust funds were normal grandmother behavior. I checked my watch. 9:45, late enough for a graceful exit. It's been a lovely evening. Thank you for including me. Nathan, I'll see you soon. Don't go yet! Nathan's protest was immediate and heartfelt. I have to, sweetheart. Early flight tomorrow. Promise you'll visit? I promise. Eleanor and I walked toward the exit. Behind us, the party continued, but the energy had shifted. Conversations now focused on what had just transpired, rather than returning to normal celebration. At the door, I turned back one final time. David stood frozen, holding documents that proved his mother could give his son more in one gift than he'd likely save in 5 years. Jennifer had her phone out, probably calculating how to spin this on Instagram. Patricia was making her way toward us, purpose in her stride. We need to go. Eleanor's voice held gentle urgency. Before they recover enough to try to stop you. She was right. We stepped into the elevator as Patricia reached the event space doors, her voice calling after us. Grandma, wait! The elevator doors closed. My reflection in the polished metal showed a woman who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. Whatever happened next, I'd drawn the boundary, made the choice, decided that being seen, truly seen, was worth whatever consequences followed. Eleanor spoke into the descending silence. Feel better? Not better, just clear. I showed them who I am. Now they have to decide who they want to be. My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. Grandma, David and Jennifer are fighting. Jennifer is crying. She says her brand is ruined. What should I tell them? I typed my response carefully. Tell them the truth. Authenticity can't be ruined if it never existed. See you tomorrow for lunch, honey. My treat. And by treat, I mean the restaurant I actually own. Eleanor read over my shoulder and laughed. You own a restaurant? 3, actually. But that's tomorrow's revelation. The elevator reached the lobby. We stepped out into marble and glass, into Denver evening air that smelled like mountain snow and distant possibilities. Eleanor adjusted her briefcase, documents secured, evidence gathered. You know they're going to call. Probably tonight. Let them call. And when they do, then I'll decide if I'm interested in rebuilding on honest foundation, or if I'm content with elegant distance. My phone rang. David's number. I silenced it. Not yet. They need time to sit with what they learned, to understand that the poor, lonely grandmother they dismissed was never those things. She was just waiting to see if they'd ask the right questions. We walked toward the valet station. The Tesla pulled up, sleek and silent. Eleanor settled into the passenger seat as I tipped the valet $20, more than he expected from someone they thought was struggling. Back to the Four Seasons? Actually, no. I have one more stop to make tonight. Where? The apartment building 4 blocks from David's house. My property manager mentioned the vacant unit on the 2nd floor. I want to see it before tomorrow's showing. Eleanor smiled. The one David walks past every day? That's the one. Time to see if he notices his mother's name on the lease agreements posted in the lobby. We drove through Denver streets, city lights reflecting off new snow, toward property my son had never questioned who owned, toward the truth that had been hiding in plain sight all along. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Phone calls and confrontations, and necessary conversations about boundaries and respect. But tonight, I'd done what I came to do. I'd stopped being invisible, and I'd let them decide if they wanted to learn how to see. The morning sun carved through Denver's skyline in sharp winter angles, turning office towers into geometric monuments of glass and steel. I sat in the corner booth of Bella Vista, the Italian restaurant I'd purchased 5 years ago through the same LLC structure that had sheltered my other investments from casual scrutiny. The ownership papers listed Margaret Chen Enterprises. My family had walked past the hostess stand dozens of times, never wondering who signed the paychecks. Patricia arrived first, sliding into the booth with the exhausted grace of someone who'd pulled another hospital shift that ended at dawn. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her smile held genuine warmth. "Grandma, you're really here." I ordered us coffee. The server, Maria, who'd worked here since I bought the place, brought it without being asked, along with the pastries I'd specifically requested from the kitchen. Patricia watched this exchange with growing awareness. She knows your order. "I come here when I'm in Denver, weekly usually. You own this place." It wasn't a question. Patricia had spent the night putting pieces together, constructing the full picture of her grandmother's hidden empire. "I do. Acquired it in 2019. The previous owner wanted to retire. I wanted a foothold in the Cherry Creek dining scene." She laughed, the sound carrying an edge of disbelief. "The Cherry Creek dining scene. Like that's a normal investment for someone supposedly living on pension." "I never said I lived only on pension. You let us think it." "I let you assume. There's a distinction." Maria refilled our coffee, disappeared back toward the kitchen. Patricia broke off a piece of almond croissant, studied it like it contained answers. "How many properties do you actually own, Grandma?" "In Denver? 3 commercial buildings, this restaurant, and a 12% stake in that new hotel development near Union Station." Jesus. Her hand covered her mouth, and none of us knew. "You never asked what I did with my time in Florida. Never questioned how I spent my days." It was easier to construct a story where I played bridge and watched the ocean and counted pennies. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my life without it being prefaced to asking for something? She flinched. The truth landed hard, as I'd intended. "I called you about medical school debt, and I sent you $500 monthly. Told you it was all I could spare from my fixed income. But it wasn't. Number 1, I could have paid your entire debt with a phone call, but I wanted to see if you'd value help or demand solutions." Patricia set down her croissant, appetite apparently gone. "You were testing us." I was observing. There's a difference between testing and simply paying attention to what people reveal about themselves when they think you have nothing to offer. The restaurant door opened. David walked in, still wearing yesterday's suit minus the tie, hair uncombed, eyes red-rimmed from obvious lack of sleep. He spotted our booth, crossed the room with determined strides. "Mom, we need to talk." "Good morning, David. Would you like coffee?" He slid into the booth next to Patricia, ignoring the question. "You own this restaurant?" "I do." "Since when?" "Since 2019. The acquisition paperwork is public record if you'd ever thought to look." "Why would I look?" His frustration crackled like static. "Why would I assume my mother, who I thought was struggling on pension, owned a restaurant in Cherry Creek? Why would you assume I was struggling?" "I never said that." "You drove an old car. You shopped at Target." "I still do both. They're comfortable and practical. Wealth doesn't require performance." Patricia interjected, voice careful. "David, maybe we should—" "Number." His attention stayed locked on me. "Last night you told me you're worth $14 million. Today I find out you own half the neighborhood. What else have you been hiding?" "I haven't been hiding anything. I've been living my life, while you constructed a narrative that required me to be helpless, so you could feel generous in your pity." The accusation hung between us like smoke. "That's not what I—" He stopped, regrouped. "Okay, fine, you want to do this here? Let's do it. Why didn't you help Patricia with medical school if you had the money?" Patricia's hand moved toward him, a gesture of restraint he ignored. "Because Patricia never demanded help. She asked if I could spare grocery money. She worked 3 jobs. She proved she wanted it badly enough to sacrifice for it. And that's some kind of test?" David's voice rose enough that nearby diners glanced over. "You're her grandmother. You're supposed to help family." "I am helping family. I've been sending Patricia $500 monthly for 2 years. That's $12,000 total." Patricia's face went still. "But I could have given her the full $180,000. I chose not to." "Want to know why?" David waited, jaw tight. "Because I needed to see which of you understood the difference between support and enabling, between helping someone climb and carrying them on your back. So it was a test. It was observation. And Patricia passed. She never complained when I couldn't give more. Never suggested I should sell my imaginary condo to fund her dreams. She valued what I offered and worked for the rest." David leaned back, processing this. Patricia looked at me with something approaching understanding. "The scholarship fund." Her voice came quiet. "That's why you're creating it." "Partially. I want girls who remind me of myself to have opportunities I had to fight for alone. But yes, it's also about demonstrating values. People who earn opportunities versus people who expect them." David found his voice again, harder this time. So Jennifer and I expected too much. That's what you're saying. You expected everything while offering nothing. You seated me at table 47. You told Nathan I was poor and pathetic. You built careers on my unpaid labor, then erased me from the narrative. Mom, Jennifer didn't mean what? To lie to 18,000 followers about doing motherhood alone? To minimize 3 years of my life into someone who comes by? His defense crumbled. We sat in silence, broken only by coffee cups meeting saucers and the low murmur of other conversations. Maria appeared with menus. I waved them away. The usual for me, Patricia? Same, please. David? He ordered without looking at the menu, distracted. Maria left. The silence reformed, heavier now. What do you want from us, Mom? David's question came out tired, defeated. You've made your point. We underestimated you. We took you for granted. We were wrong. What happens now? I pulled a folder from my bag. Eleanor had prepared it last night while I slept, efficient as always. Inside, typed documents, legally precise language, conditions spelled out in paragraphs numbered for clarity. These are my terms for rebuilding our relationship. Terms? David stared at the folder like it might contain a subpoena. You're drafting contracts for family? I'm establishing boundaries. If you want me in your life, in Nathan's life, these are the conditions. Patricia reached for the folder. I slid it toward her. She read aloud, voice steady despite the content. Condition 1. Monthly contact initiated by you, not me. Phone calls where you ask about my life, my work, my interests. Actual questions that require more than yes or no answers. That's reasonable, Patricia observed. Condition 2. Quarterly visits. I will attend one family event per quarter if you attend one event of mine. Industry conferences, charity functions, property inspections. You show interest in my world as I show interest in yours. David leaned over to read the rest. Condition 3. Financial independence for 12 months. No requests for money, loans, or investments. You manage your own circumstances without treating me as backup funding. His jaw worked, grinding something unspoken. Condition 4. Public acknowledgement. At the next family gathering, you honestly address what I contributed to Nathan's upbringing. No minimizing, no revisionist history, just truth. And if we don't agree to these terms? David looked up from the document. What then? Then we maintain polite distance, holiday cards, occasional phone calls, the relationship we've actually had for the past 6 years instead of pretending it's something more. You're giving us an ultimatum. I'm offering a path forward. You can take it or not. But I'm done with halfway. I'm done pretending that being blood-related equals actual relationship. Patricia closed the folder carefully. I accept all 4 conditions. David turned to her, surprised. Just like that? These aren't unreasonable, David. They're actually kind of bare minimum for functional family dynamics. But the no money requests thing is fair. She kept her voice even but firm. We've been treating Grandma like an ATM without bothering to ask how she's doing. This corrects that. You weren't even asking for money. His accusation targeted me now. You were sending it. Why punish us for accepting help you offered? Because you never wondered where it came from, or if I could actually afford it. You just took and assumed. The food arrived. Pappardelle for me and Patricia, risotto for David. We ate in tense silence for several minutes. Finally, David set down his fork. What about Jennifer? Does she have to agree to this too? Jennifer is your wife. Your decisions affect her. If you accept these terms, you're both bound by them. She's not going to like this. Then she doesn't have to participate. But that means you'll be attending my events and family dinners alone.
You're really willing to exclude your daughter-in-law?
I'm willing to have a relationship with people who treat me with respect. If Jennifer chooses not to meet that standard, that's her decision. David picked up his fork again, pushed risotto around his plate without eating. Patricia had finished half her pasta and was watching her brother with something like pity. You should accept, David, before you lose her entirely. I haven't lost anything. He sounded defensive even to himself. Mom's still here, physically. Patricia's observation cut clean. But she's been gone emotionally for years because we pushed her out. This is her offering to come back if we're willing to actually see her. I didn't push. You seated her at table 47. The statement ended the argument. David knew it. I knew it. Patricia knew it. The seating chart had been a map of their priorities, and I'd been marked as irrelevant. David exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping. Fine, I accept the terms. All 4 conditions? All 4. His agreement came grudging but genuine. Monthly calls, quarterly visits, no money requests, public acknowledgement. Good. I pulled out my phone, opened my calendar. I have a property managers meeting next Thursday at 2, downtown. You're welcome to attend. Next Thursday, that's 5 days away. The terms begin immediately. Or did you think you could ease into actually caring? Patricia laughed, short and sharp. She's got you there. Fine. Thursday at 2. Text me the address. I will. I finished my pasta, signaled Maria for the check. There's something else you should know. David braced visibly. Patricia's medical school debt? I've been paying it. What? Patricia's voice climbed an octave. Monthly payments. Directly to Johns Hopkins. Started 2 years ago, same time I began sending you grocery money. But her confusion was genuine. I'm still getting loan statements. Because I'm paying the minimum required, keeping your credit active, preventing default, but not eliminating the debt entirely. Why not just pay it off? Because you need to understand the weight of it, the reality of debt, the discipline of payments. When you graduate and start residency, I'll settle the remaining balance, but not before you've learned what it means to carry that responsibility. Tears tracked down Patricia's face. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed. That's incredibly manipulative. It's incredibly strategic. There's a difference. David had gone quiet, processing yet another revelation about his mother's hidden interventions. How much has she paid so far? $73,000. I answered before Patricia could. Principal plus interest on her federal loans. The private loans she's still managing herself. Jesus Christ. David dropped his head into his hands. Is there anything you haven't been secretly funding? Your lifestyle. That you've managed entirely on your own, which was the point. Patricia found her voice through tears. Thank you. I know I'm supposed to be angry about the manipulation, but thank you. You're welcome, sweetheart. And for the record, your graduation present will be the remaining loan balance, plus a check to start your practice. But you have to finish first. She nodded, unable to speak. Maria brought the check. David reached for it reflexively. I took it first. My restaurant, my bill. Right. He sat back, still adjusting to this version of his mother who owned restaurants and paid medical school tuition and set terms for relationships. Patricia excused herself to the restroom. When she was gone, David leaned across the table, voice low. Jennifer's Instagram lost 20,000 followers overnight. I know, I saw. People are calling her a liar, saying she exploited you for content. Did she? His silence was answer enough. She's talking about taking a break from social media, rebranding, maybe pivoting to different content. That's probably wise. You don't sound sympathetic. I'm not unsympathetic. But consequences aren't punishment. They're education. She's my wife, Mom. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to acknowledge that Jennifer built a brand on falsehood, and that brand is now collapsing under the weight of truth. That's not my fault. But you could help. If you did an interview with her, talked about your relationship, people would what? Forgive her for lying because I validated the lie retroactively? No. So you'll just let her fail. I'll let her experience the natural results of her choices. If she wants to rebuild on honesty, I'll support that. But I won't be used to prop up a narrative that erased me. David rubbed his eyes, exhaustion evident. When did you get so hard? I'm not hard. I'm boundaried. There is a difference. Patricia returned, composure restored. She slid back into the booth and changed the subject deliberately. Tell us about the scholarship fund. I pulled out my tablet, opened the presentation Eleanor and I had finalized last night. The screen showed a professional layout, logo, mission statement, funding structure. The Margaret Chen Sullivan STEM Scholarship for Women. $1 million endowment, 10 recipients annually, $25,000 each. Preference given to first-generation college students working multiple jobs to fund their education. Patricia studied the criteria, nodding approval. This is incredible. The announcement ceremony is next month. Caltech is hosting. I'm delivering the keynote. We'll be there. Patricia spoke with certainty. Both of us. David hesitated only a moment before nodding. Both of us. Good. You'll sit in the front row. You'll meet the recipients. You'll hear their stories and understand why this matters. We left the restaurant an hour later. Stepping into cold Denver morning, Patricia hugged me tight, whispering promises to call weekly, to visit monthly, to be better. David stood awkward, uncertain how to bridge the gap years of neglect had created. Mom, Save it for the phone call. First one is due within the week. I will, I promise. Promises are easy. Consistency is what counts. I watched them walk toward their cars. Patricia's aging Civic, David's leased BMW. 2 children I'd raised. One who'd learned to value struggle, and one who'd learned to expect comfort. The difference showed in everything from their vehicles to their values. Eleanor picked me up at noon, driving us toward the apartment building David passed daily. The property sat on a tree-lined street 4 blocks from his house, red brick and white trim, 6 units arranged in careful symmetry. A discreet sign near the entrance read, "Managed by Chen Enterprises." We parked across the street, waited. "You think he'll notice?" Eleanor asked. Wait. Eventually. Maybe not today, but eventually. And when he does, then he'll understand that the woman he pitied has been his landlord's landlord all along. The vacant second-floor unit showed well, hardwood floors, updated kitchen, mountain views from the bedroom windows. I walked through slowly, checking details my property manager had mentioned needing attention. Fresh paint in the bathroom, new fixtures in the kitchen, minor repairs that would cost a few $1,000s but add 10 to the rental value. Eleanor made notes, photographed issues, compiled a list for the contractor. "You're keeping it residential?" "For now. The neighborhood's trending commercial, but I like having families here. Stability over maximum profit." "You're remarkably practical for someone worth $14 million. 14.3 as of this morning. Stock market's been good to me." We locked up, posted the showing notice in the lobby, where lease agreements were displayed behind glass. Margaret Chen Enterprises, property owner. My name right there for anyone who cared to look. Back at the Four Seasons, I changed clothes and prepared for my afternoon meeting with my other 2 restaurant managers. Eleanor joined via video call from her office. Legal documents ready for review. The meeting covered standard operations, quarterly earnings, staffing changes, menu updates for spring. My stake in Denver's dining scene generated approximately $42,000 in annual passive income. Not my largest revenue stream, but one I enjoyed for its tangible immediacy. Food, service, satisfaction. Simple economics rendered in pasta and wine. Patricia called that evening while I was reviewing property tax statements. "Grandma, I've been thinking about your conditions, the no money request rule. Having second thoughts?" "No, but I want to add one. For myself." "I'm listening." "I want to pay you back. The $73,000 you've already paid on my loans. It'll take years, but I want to do it." "Why?" "Because you taught me that accepting help and expecting solutions are different things. I accepted your help. Now I want to prove I can stand on my own." "You don't have to prove anything to me, sweetheart. I need to prove it to myself. Then we'll draw up a payment plan. No interest. You pay what you can when you can. Deal?" "Deal." We talked for another hour. She asked about my restaurants, my properties, my plans for the scholarship fund. Asked about the patents I held, the systems I designed, the career she'd never known I'd had. Real questions requiring real answers. The kind of conversation we should have been having all along. David called 2 days later, awkward but genuine. "Mom, I'm sorry. For everything, for assuming, for not asking, for table 47. I appreciate that. Can I ask you something about your work?" "Of course." "The patents you mentioned, what did they actually do?" I spent 30 minutes explaining satellite navigation, autonomous positioning, the systems that help GPS function with accuracy. He listened, asked intelligent questions, seemed genuinely interested. Questions about orbital mechanics, signal triangulation, the mathematics of precision. I found myself drawing diagrams on paper, explaining concepts I hadn't articulated in years. "So your algorithms are still being used, like right now?" "Right now. Every GPS satellite in orbit uses variations of the positioning systems I helped develop." "That's incredible, Mom. I had no idea." "You never asked." The observation landed without malice. Simple fact. I know I should have. When we hung up, I sat in my penthouse overlooking the Atlantic and felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly. Not reconciliation. Just the possibility of reconstruction if we both chose to do the work. Jennifer never called, but her Instagram went dark 3 days after the party. Her last post, a carefully worded statement about taking time to reflect on authenticity and family, and the difference between sharing life and performing it. The comments were brutal. I didn't read them. The scholarship fund ceremony took place on a Saturday morning in February. Caltech's auditorium filled with students, faculty, donors, and press. The space held 500 people, and every seat was occupied. David and Jennifer sat front row as promised, Nathan between them. Patricia sat beside them, medical school textbooks visible in her bag because she'd come straight from a study session. The dean of engineering introduced me, recounting my career at Lockheed Martin, my 7 patents, my contributions to satellite navigation systems that revolutionized GPS technology. I listened to this recitation of my accomplishments and thought about all the years David and Jennifer had never asked what I'd done with my working life. I took the stage in a navy suit that cost less than the Herrera but fit better. No jewelry except my mother's jade pendant, the one piece I'd kept from her estate. The weight of it against my chest felt like an anchor, connecting me to the woman who taught me to hide money in coat hems, who'd crossed an ocean believing her children might achieve what she couldn't. My speech covered the basics, my background, my career, my reason for creating the fund. But I also talked about invisibility, about being underestimated because of gender, age, background, about the women who'd helped me and the women I wanted to help in turn. The first-generation college students working 3 jobs to afford textbooks. I looked directly at Patricia when I said this. The brilliant engineers dismissed because they didn't fit someone's narrow definition of innovation. The mothers who sacrificed careers for children, then watched those children forget the sacrifice. I looked at David when I said that last part, watched him flinch with recognition. But I also talked about the women who taught me resilience. My mother, pressing shirts for $8 an hour while hiding escape money in her winter coat. The women at Lockheed who'd fought their way into engineering rooms and held the door open behind them. The single mothers in my Denver apartment buildings who paid rent on time despite working multiple jobs, who proved every day that strength isn't about never needing help. It's about standing back up every time you fall. This scholarship isn't charity, my voice carried to the back of the auditorium. It's investment. I'm investing in women who will change the world, not because someone believed in them from the start, but because they believed in themselves when no one else would. The 10 scholarship recipients stood when I called their names, young women from across the country, each with stories that echoed mine. Maria Rodriguez from El Paso, first in her family to attend college, working overnight shifts at a warehouse while maintaining a 4.0 GPA in mechanical engineering. Keisha Johnson from Atlanta, raised by her grandmother, teaching herself to code at the public library because her high school didn't offer computer science. Amy Chen from San Francisco, daughter of immigrants, balancing full-time classes with caring for her disabled father. Each one approached the stage, and I shook their hands, looked them in the eyes. Your worth isn't determined by who believes in you. It's determined by who you become when you believe in yourself. Maria Rodriguez's hand trembled in mine. She whispered so only I could hear. My mother cleans houses. She doesn't speak English. She cried when I got into Caltech, but said we couldn't afford it. Now you can, I told her. And one day, you'll do this for someone else. The applause was thunderous. Patricia cried openly, not bothering to hide her tears. David stood, clapping hard enough to hurt his hands, something breaking open in his expression as he watched his mother receive recognition he'd never thought to give her. Jennifer's expression was unreadable, but she stood too, joining the ovation. Nathan tugged at his father's sleeve, confusion on his 8-year-old face. Dad, why is everyone clapping for Grandma? David knelt beside his son, voice thick. Because Grandma's extraordinary, and we forgot to notice. After the ceremony, the recipients gathered for photos. Local news crews conducted interviews. The university photographer positioned us on stage, me surrounded by 10 young women whose lives I was about to change the way no one had changed mine. David approached hesitantly, waiting until the photo session ended. Mom, that was incredible. Thank you. Can I meet them, the scholarship recipients? Of course. I introduced him to all 10. Watched him listen to their stories, their struggles, their dreams. Watched understanding dawn across his face as he recognized his mother in each of them. When Maria Rodriguez mentioned working overnight warehouse shifts, David's eyes cut to me, realizing I'd done exactly that while pregnant with him, while raising him, while he assumed I was just a part-time consultant. You worked 3 jobs? He asked, Mom. Voice quiet. Someone has to pay for textbooks. She shrugged like it was nothing, like extraordinary sacrifice was just Tuesday. My mom worked 3 jobs too. David looked at me when he said it. I never really understood what that meant until now. We drove back to the hotel in silence, Eleanor and I in the rental car, David and his family in their SUV following behind. Nathan had asked to see my penthouse, wanted to visit Grandma's beach house, and I'd agreed. Let them see the truth. Let them understand. That evening, back in Florida, I sat on my balcony watching sunset paint the ocean gold and orange and purple. David and Jennifer and Nathan were inside. Nathan exploring the penthouse with wide-eyed wonder. Jennifer quiet and thoughtful. David still processing. Eleanor called with updates on the trust administration. Patricia texted photos from her study group, along with a message. You changed those girls' lives today. Thank you for showing me what's possible. David found me on the balcony an hour later. Nathan was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from travel and excitement. Jennifer was giving him space, understanding he needed to have this conversation alone. He sat in the chair beside me, both of us watching the ocean turn dark as the sun disappeared. I've been thinking about what you said, about being invisible. And I made you invisible. Not intentionally, but through neglect, through assumption, through never asking. Yes, I'm sorry, Mom. Truly sorry. Not because you're rich and I didn't know it, but because you're brilliant and accomplished, and I never bothered to find out. I appreciate that. The scholarship recipients. He paused, searching for words. They reminded me of you. Not just their circumstances, but their determination. Their refusal to be defined by what they don't have. That's the point. I wanted to help girls who wouldn't wait for permission to be extraordinary. Like you didn't. Like I couldn't afford to. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to waves break against the shore. Jennifer wants to apologize. David's voice was careful. But she's scared you won't forgive her. I don't need apologies. I need change. She's changing. Really changing. The Instagram break isn't performative. She's actually examining what she built and why it required erasing you. That's good. That's healthy. Would you be willing to have coffee with her? Just the two of you? I considered this. Yes, when she's ready. Nathan woke the next morning demanding to see the beach. We walked the shore together, my grandson's small hand in mine, collecting shells and chasing sandpipers. David and Jennifer trailed behind, giving us space. Grandma, are you really rich? I smiled at his 8-year-old directness. I'm comfortable, sweetheart. Dad says you're a genius, that you helped invent GPS. I helped improve some systems. Many people contributed. But you're important? I did important work, yes. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. He thought about this, brow furrowed in concentration. That's sad. It was. But it's getting better. Jennifer asked me to coffee the following week after they'd returned to Denver. We met at a small cafe near Cherry Creek, neutral territory. She arrived early, ordered tea, waited with visible nervousness. I sat across from her, let the silence stretch. I hurt you. Her acknowledgement came without excuses. I took credit for work you did. I minimized your role. I built a brand on a lie. I'm sorry. I accept your apology. Can I ask why you didn't call me out earlier? You had every right. Because calling you out would have made me the villain in the narrative. Better to let the truth reveal itself. She nodded, understanding. Your Instagram now, is it closer to truth? I'm trying. It's hard to unlearn performance, but I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. We weren't friends. Probably would never be. But we'd found détente, which was more than I'd expected. I showed David your patents. She took a sip of tea. I didn't understand half the technical language, but I understood enough. You're extraordinary, Maggie. And I treated you like you were ordinary. You treated me like I was invisible. There's a difference. I know, she set down her cup. I'm teaching Nathan about you. Your real story, not the version I constructed. He should know his grandmother is brilliant. Thank you. We sat for another hour, conversation gradually finding easier rhythm. She talked about rebuilding her platform authentically, about the followers she'd lost and the ones who remained, about learning to value substance over performance. When we parted, she hugged me, brief, tentative, genuine. Thank you for giving us another chance. I'm giving you opportunity to earn one. There's a difference. I know, and I'll earn it. 6 months passed. Summer turned Denver green and lush, turned Florida impossibly humid. I flew to Denver monthly, saw Nathan quarterly, attended the property managers' meetings with David beside me taking notes. He'd started asking about commercial real estate investing, about portfolio management, about the decisions I made and why. Real curiosity, genuine interest in understanding the empire I'd built while he'd assumed poverty. One afternoon in June, we stood together in the vacant unit of my apartment building, the one he'd walked past for 15 years without wondering who owned it. You're renovating the kitchen? New appliances, updated counters. Small investment for significant return. What's the ROI? About 12% annually when you factor in increased rental value. He made notes on his phone, asked about financing structures, property management costs, tenant screening processes. Why didn't you teach me this earlier? I tried. You weren't interested in learning from someone you thought was struggling. Fair? He looked around the unit. So this whole time, while I complained about Denver real estate prices, you were walking past property I owned. Yes? That's poetic. That's observation. I watched, I waited. I learned who you were when you thought I had nothing. And now I'm learning who you are when you know I have everything. So far, I like this version better. Me too, Mom, me too. Patricia graduated medical school third in her class. I settled her remaining debt, $107,000, and gave her a check for $50,000 to start her family practice. She cried, hugged me, promised to make me proud. You already do, I told her. The graduation ceremony was small, intimate, held in Johns Hopkins Historical Auditorium. Patricia wore her white coat, hood draped across her shoulders in Hopkins blue. When they called her name, Dr. Patricia Sullivan, I stood and cheered louder than anyone. David was there too, having flown in from Denver specifically for the ceremony. He'd never attended her college graduation, her medical school orientation, any of the milestones that had marked her journey. But he was here now, clapping until his palms stung, pride evident in his expression. After the ceremony, the three of us had dinner at an elegant restaurant near the harbor. Patricia had chosen it, a celebration worthy of the achievement. To new beginnings, she raised her glass. To women who build their own tables. I touched my glass to hers. To family that shows up, David added, voice serious. Better late than never. We drank to that. Patricia leaned across the table, eyes bright with plans and possibilities. I've been thinking about the practice I want to open. Women's health, underserved communities, using the $50,000 as seed funding. Tell me more. She outlined her vision, sliding scale fees, accepting Medicaid, focusing on preventive care for women who couldn't afford regular checkups. The business model was ambitious but sustainable if executed carefully. David listened, then pulled out his phone. I want to invest, not as family obligation but as business opportunity. What do you need? Patricia blinked, surprised. $25,000 would let me lease a better location. Done. Send me the business plan. She looked at me, uncertain. Is that allowed, the no money request rule? This isn't a request. David's offering investment in a sound business plan. That's different. Exactly. David nodded. I've learned to recognize the difference between supporting someone's climb and carrying them. This is the former. I watch my two grandchildren. David, technically my son, but young enough to still be learning. Patricia, wise beyond her years, but still needing guidance. Negotiate terms like equals, partnership, not charity, respect, not pity. This was what family could be when everyone showed up honestly. David never missed a monthly call after that. Asked about my consulting work, my property portfolio, my plans for expanding the scholarship fund. Real questions that led to real conversations. He attended every quarterly event, property inspections, charity galas, investor meetings, taking notes, learning the business I'd built in secret. Jennifer rebuilt her Instagram slowly, posting less frequently, focusing on honesty over aesthetics. Her follower count stabilized around 200,000. Smaller platform, but more authentic. She featured me in several posts, not as content, but as family. Photos of us having coffee, Nathan and me on the beach, genuine moments without performance. One post showed the scholarship ceremony, me surrounded by the 10 recipients. Her caption, "My mother-in-law is extraordinary. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Grateful for second chances." The comments were supportive. Her remaining followers appreciated authenticity more than the performance she'd been selling. Nathan visited Florida for a week that summer, saw the penthouse, marveled at the ocean view, asked 1,000 questions about satellites and engineering and how money works. We spent afternoons walking the beach, evenings cooking dinner, mornings exploring tidal pools. He was 8 years old and brilliant and deserved to know all his family, not just the parts his parents had decided to show him. On his last day, he hugged me tight. I'm glad you're rich, Grandma, but I'm gladder you're here. Me too, sweetheart. Why didn't you tell us before? 'Cause I wanted to see if you'd love me when you thought I was poor. And you did. You always asked about me, always wanted to spend time together. That's how I knew you were special. Am I the favorite grandkid? You're my only grandkid. So, yes. He grinned, satisfied with this logic. After he left, I sat on my balcony with Eleanor, reviewing estate documents and trust amendments. She'd flown down for the weekend, mixing business with pleasure. You've rebuilt it. The relationship with your family. Rebuilt implies returning to what was. This is new construction. Fair point. She made a note on her tablet. And Jennifer? Still fragile, still learning, but trying. That's all you can ask. I stared out at the ocean, thinking about table 47, thinking about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Invisible, dismissed, relegated to corners and afterthoughts. Do you think they've actually changed? Eleanor asked. Or are they just scared of losing access to your money? Both, probably. Human motivation is rarely pure. But David's showing up. Patricia never needed changing. Jennifer's doing the work even though it's uncomfortable. That's enough for now. And if it's not enough later, then I'll have these boundaries to fall back on. That's the point of conditions. They protect both parties. We worked until sunset, then ordered dinner from the restaurant I partially owned 3 floors below. My life had become this strange hybrid. Wealth and simplicity, power and practicality, family at arm's length, and chosen family close. Eleanor raised her wine glass. To women who know their worth and make others learn it. I touched my glass to hers. To women who build their own tables when they're not offered a seat. We drank to that. To the scholarships funded, and the boundaries drawn, and the truth that had been hiding in plain sight all along. To the $14 million that had grown from $380,000 in secret savings. To the patents and properties and power accumulated in silence, while others assumed poverty. But most of all, to the choice I'd made to stop being invisible. The phone rang later that night. David's number. Mom, I just realized something. What's that? That building I walk past every day. The one with the Chen Enterprises sign. That's yours, isn't it? I smiled at the ocean. At the reflected lights dancing on dark water. Took you long enough to notice. How long have I been walking past property you own? About 15 years, give or take. His laugh carried embarrassment and wonder. I've been complaining to you about Denver real estate while walking past your building. While having coffee in your building, technically. The shop on the corner pays me rent. This is insane. This is observation. I watched, I waited. I learned who you were when you thought I had nothing. And now I'm learning who you are when you know I have everything. So far, I like this version better. Me too, Mom, me too. We talked for another hour. He asked about my other properties, my consulting clients, the aerospace industry I'd left behind. Real curiosity, genuine interest. You know what's funny? His voice was thoughtful. I spent years thinking you needed my pity, my occasional check-ins to make sure you were okay, my generous offer to let you babysit Nathan like I was doing you a favor. And now I realize you were doing us the favor, giving us chances to prove we valued you. And we kept failing until you stopped letting us. But you're here now. I'm here now, better late than never, right? Much better late than never. When we hung up, I stood on my balcony one last time, breathing salt air and satisfaction. My reflection in the dark glass showed a woman who'd stopped apologizing for existing, who'd drawn boundaries and enforced them, who'd loved her family enough to let them fail until they learned to value what they'd dismissed. Dignity over drama, boundaries over begging, truth over performance. And when they finally saw me, truly saw me, it wasn't because I demanded acknowledgement. It was because I'd stopped allowing them not to. That's the power they never taught women my age we had. But I learned it anyway. And now, through scholarship funds and honest conversations and rebuilt relationships, I was teaching other women the same lesson. Know your worth. Know your seat. And if they don't offer you one, build your own table. Then invite whoever deserves to sit there. The rest can stay at table 47 until they learn.